Owen Schroyer from the Infowars War Room. You are now traveling through another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are that of imagination. That's a sign. Post up ahead of you. Your next stop, Prison Palace. I'm here now to introduce you to your guide, a maverick, a future legend, and FEMA camp princess, a televangelista, a soldier in the tyranny response team. It's none other than Priscilla. Buckle up, because if you don't understand it now, you soon will, and that's where the real ride begins. Let's go.
Hey, Priz, let's get it really started. You know, we have, I'm sure Chase is aware that, you know, Masons sometimes get a little bit of hate.
No shit. Not until I started talking to you guys. I go on Infowars and my shit.
Don't lie. You know you got Infowars. We got.
The only reason I brought it up, I was like, if these people find out, I was like, if these people find out I'm a Freemason and I didn't tell them first, then they're gonna it's gonna be a shit show. So I just like was on air. I was like, I'm a Freemason. Like that's why I did that with that first caller. I was like, full disclosure, like I'm not gonna keep that from you.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to be transparent about it.
I want to give people the opportunity to ask a Mason a question. You know, like that's
sure.
It seems like a legit way to figure things out. I mean, me personally, I don't see nothing wrong with you. You seem like a pretty legit guy.
I'm happy to answer any questions, but be careful. You shouldn't trust me. I could be a
Have you know, I mean, we have hopefully we have the same goals. You know, we want to save America. So
lower that background noise so we can hear some questions.
All right.
Ready?
Yep.
So I was curious for Chase, since I know you've responded to me before that my sources aren't very good. And I know you just mentioned that you do like Manly P. Hall. What other sources do you like for gearing people to knowing more about Freemasonry?
Great question. So there's a documentary that I recommend you watch that's really accurate. And it's called 33 and Beyond. And I actually know the guy who made it. I know a lot of people who are in it. That is a legit sort of accurate source. And if you walk away from that, and you might see it and be like, all right, you know, I have objections to this. This seems fucked up. Then that's fine. But at least the information is accurate. A lot of people that are critical of Freemasonry are people. There's very few. I'm sure there are some that have been Masons or claim to have been Masons, but most of the criticism of Masons is from people who like have never actually been a part of it or done any of it. So it's a lot of people from the outside.
Like Leo Zagami and Bill Schneblin, just like there's a lot of past Masons who have talked about it. But
sure. I don't know those. I don't know those people specifically. So I'd have to look into it. I'd be happy to. If you share a link, I'll look into it myself. But
you need to read Leo Zagami's books for sure. Those are some of the best on the subject. So.
I'm happy to do that.
I do like Leo.
Leo Zagami's like, yeah, he's cool.
Is he a former Mason?
Illuminati and...
Wait, is he the?
he was on the inside.
Has he been on Infowars?
He was in P2.
Harrison's multiple times, and on AJ's.
The most criminal Italian mafia associated.
No, the Italian.
P2.
I will say this on that note. The Italian Masons and the Mexican Masons are definitely into some corrupt shit. So, like for example, I went to Tijuana one time to actually. I lived about 2 hours north of Tijuana in California, and I was at a lodge meeting, and one of the guys was like, "Hey, by the way, a few of us are going to go down to Mexico to see how the Mexicans do an initiation, you know, just like for fun." So I went, and as soon as you walk across the border into Tijuana, it's like post-apocalyptic. I mean, there's people. We're like wearing black suits. We're the only ones like dressed to the nines in Tijuana. People are begging us for money. And I'm like, fuck, what am I doing in Tijuana? Like, I hope the cartel. Like, I hope I don't get kidnapped by the cartel. We go to meet our driver, and we go to the lodge, and I walk in the lodge. Everyone is like packing a gun. You can't get a fucking gun in Mexico. There's one place you can get a gun. I'm like, holy shit. I was worried about getting kidnapped by the cartel. These guys are the fucking cartel, right? And so it's definitely true that there's a lot of corruption in Masonry in other countries. I just haven't seen it here in the United States. Maybe in the 19th century, but it's not anything that I've become acquainted with here a lot. Like the lodges here are more like an Elks Lodge or a Moose Lodge. It's more of a social thing than like a political thing. At least today.
That reminds me of the thing from your clip, though, too.
Where did the pirates come from? Did you know that the Knights Templar had one of the largest fleets in the world? Did you know that one of their symbols is the skull and crossbones? Did you know that on every grave of the Knights Templar in Europe is the skull and crossbones? Did you know that when the Templars were destroyed by the Pope and the King of France, the entire fleet escaped and became the pirates? Didn't you ever wonder why the pirates were called the Brotherhood? Didn't you ever wonder why they could all sail into the same port and never fight each other? Didn't you ever wonder where the Templars' fleet went?
Is that secret oaths and this brotherhood really leads to corruption? Because I saw you're saying the pirates are Masons, and yes, they were.
Maybe.
And
yeah,
that's really, it ends up connecting to Skull and Bones and Iran-Contra, and there's a lot of criminality and drug running within Masonry, and that's really kind of what led to a lot of the corruption in the deep state, but I don't really see how it doesn't.
Well, there's some truth to that.
A lot of my ancestors have been Masons. You judge a tree by its fruits. Now, that said, one of my great uncles told my dad when he was a kid, don't join the Masons. And he was a high-level Mason, as high as you could get. Because so much organized crime uses the Masonic secret system and the good old boy network to be able to get away with murder. And I mean murder.
So in Masonry, you are obligated after the third degree to keep another Mason's secrets whenever given to you as such. So like when a Mason says, hey, I want to tell you a secret on the square. That's what they'll say. That means that if you agree to that and then you listen to the secret, you can't tell anyone about it. Otherwise, you'll be basically expelled from the fraternity, except for murder and treason. So if someone betrays your country or murders someone, then you can tell whoever you want. But if anything else on the square, other than that, like if they tell you something on the square, you can, file what's called Masonic charges, where you basically there's like a whole Masonic court system where you get your own representation, and it's a Masonic trial. So if they violated like the rules, like let's say if a Mason was stealing money, that would not be something that I would be allowed to tell the public, but it would be something that I could press Masonic charges on him for. And then he would be, if he was found guilty of stealing money, whether it was from the lodge or anyone, he would be expelled from the fraternity for that. But murder and treason, you can just go straight to the government for that. So the fact of the matter is that can be a good thing and a bad thing. So in the instance of like the revolution in the United States, it was really good that people were able to go to a lodge and talk shit about King George without having to worry about getting tarred and feathered. A lot of the planning for the revolution happened among Masons because they just trusted each other and they kept each other's secrets and were discreet. But at the same token, if you look at like the reason the anti-Masonic Party came out in the 1800s, there was a lot of corruption going on where like if you had a Mason who was a judge and a Mason who was a defendant, then the judge would just let him off all the time. And that kind of shit definitely happened in the fraternity, but that's not something that the fraternity pushes. It's just something that happens.
I just had a quick question. What about pedophilia? So you said murder and treason towards your country?
Yeah, so those are the only ones that I believe are protected, at least in the actual oaths that you take. There are more rules that are written because it's been updated. Pedophilia would not be something that I would keep a secret. So if I ever heard of a Mason doing anything like that, I would just go straight to law enforcement and say, fine, kick me out if you want. I don't think they would kick you out for renting somebody out for pedophilia.
That
you definitely
has
can't get in
happened, though.
I interviewed a reputable psychologist in Australia who has worked with survivors over a 20-year period. She has seen approximately 20 clients who say they have been ritually abused and mind-controlled. Out of those 20 survivors, 2 of them have allegedly been abused by Freemasons. My grandfather was a 33rd degree Mason who belonged to several Masonic lodges. He and my grandmother founded a chapter of the Order of the Eastern Star in the suburbs of Sydney. I have been in therapy for 20 years now, 16 with my present therapist. I consider myself lucky because my family moved from the east coast to the west coast of Australia when I was 9, and as a result, the ritual abuse by cult members stopped. Other types of abuse continued, but being taken in the middle of the night to attend rituals stopped. My sister, who is 7 years older than me, also has memories of ritual abuse. One day when I was 26, she asked me if I remembered the underground chambers. I replied yes. She then asked if I remembered the children crying. I said no, but I know they were there in the other rooms. I also consider myself lucky because 17 years ago, when I confronted my mother and father with the ritual abuse, my mother said she was not involved with that. But here's the suitcase of your grandfather's Masonic paraphernalia. She has apologised for not being a good mother to me. I think this is the closest acknowledgement of the abuse I will get. This suitcase has confirmed so much for me. It has copies of passwords, hand signals, and ritual information for the Freemasons, along with aprons, jewels, and medals that my grandfather and grandmother wore at meetings. I remember being in cages, electric shocks, being cut, raped, photographed, drugged, hypnotised, starved, light deprived, beaten, oxygen deprived, and sleep deprived. I have been put in coffins with spiders. I have participated in rituals inside halls and in outside bush settings. I have been tied to altars. I have participated in mock births and deaths. I remember trapdoors in halls and have been taken numerous times in the middle of the night to attend rituals. The colour programming I went through took place in underground chambers. Each room had a different colour, and different programming was perpetrated in them. Colours seem to correspond with the points of the Eastern Star: blue, yellow, white, green, red, and black in the middle.
Well, early on in my research, when people were coming forward with accounts, some accounts appeared about deviant Freemasons. That is to say, some of the people making allegations were indicating that their fathers had been Freemasons, and that somehow their alleged abuse they thought was connected with the lodge or Freemasons. Occasionally, abuse accounts, if they were true, and I can't say that they were definitively, but if they were true, seem to have occurred inside Masonic lodges.
Initially, it was and personal descriptions of having gone through cult ritual abuse. And then we began to realize that a great percentage of the survivors had also been involved in Masonic cult ritual abuse. Their father, grandfathers were Masons or Shriners, again, in different parts of the country. And we started looking a lot more closely at that because it seemed to be a common thread. There were private conversations about it that went on at the gathering. I put a few small advertisements in the Globe and Mail, notifications about the upcoming conferences, and just the 3 or 4 words describing the Masonic connection generated phone calls and letters from survivors across Canada who described themselves as being Masonic survivors living in terror. And they were invariably the daughters of Masons or Scottish Rite Shriners, the daughters of Masons. And they began describing, again from all across Canada, memories of be described as mind control experimentation.
Have been sexually violated by their Masonic relatives, often in Masonic temples. This is why the Masons believe that they will live forever. They think every time they defile a little child, they steal some of that child's youth. And if you notice, children who are sexually abused do age more rapidly because their innocence has been stolen.
Also, on the same day during this ceremony, the Masons would pair off with the little boys and me, go to different rooms behind the main altar in the back building and be raped and abused. My uncle, who was also there, he was the one who took me into a room and raped me. That was pretty normal, yeah.
So both your father and your uncle were part of the Freemasons organization, and they would supply you to other members of the Freemasons who would abuse you and force you to participate in rituals, which included the murder of a child. I would like to say that, again, this is something that's not unusual in these ritual groups. They use these methods specifically to confuse, disorientate, and split children.
Hello, Carly here. Today is Monday, October 22nd, 2018, and in this video I want to talk about how there is a deep connection between the Masons, the Freemasons, and MKUltra. First of all, it's important to know who funds MKUltra. It's the CIA, the Department of Health, and the Freemasons. When my Freemason relatives abused me and abducted me at gunpoint from my other relatives, they enslaved my other relatives into MKUltra, and I've seen the Monarch program paperwork firsthand. I heard my other relatives, the handlers, talking about specific details, which I'm going to talk about in my next video. However, it's important to know that if you have family members who are Freemasons, and you have family members that are MKUltra, there is a direct correlation between the two.
Yeah, but pedophilia has happened in every single organization. It doesn't mean that that's what the organization is for.
Of course,
You know what I
but
mean?
the organization is for the Universal Brotherhood and the Philosophic Empire. That's the whole thing with the New Atlantis and coming to America, is to establish the philanthropic empire.
Yeah, philanthropic though means that you help the world out of your own. Like, you make the choice to do it on your own, not that you're forced to do it. Like, communism isn't philanthropic. They're just forcing you to give your shit to everybody else. Philanthropic means that you develop a culture that is like giving and compassionate and voluntarily helping people and trying to improve the world. It's not about like a coercive.
Yeah, but it's also it's making a one world government, though.
No, I don't see that's another common misconception about Masonry. In Masonry, you're actually not even supposed to talk about politics at lodge meetings. You can talk about politics with Masons outside of lodge meetings, but there's no emphasis on a one world government in any of the material that I've consumed within Masonry or any of the conversations. And frankly, quite to the contrary, most Masons I know are
Really?
far opposed
Because,
to it.
like,
Absolutely.
it says it right here in that text that I sent to you from
Manly P. Hall?
Manly P. Hall. I can read it right.
Manly
I
P.
can read
Hall-
it right here. And I mean, this sentiment is mirrored in many, many, many other Masonic writings.
Sure, but then you can actually,
like,
read the degree work in the ritual, and it's not about a one world government at all. It doesn't espouse any specific one world. You get one of the main reasons that the Masons were formed was to flee the Catholic Church, because the Pope was killing everybody who was leaving the faith, and the Knights Templars. That's why I think the Knights Templars are connected to the Masons. And so the one world government is completely antithetical to the sentiments of the fraternity. The fraternity is founded on a notion of individual freedom and personal enlightenment, not global mandates.
And also, yeah, I mean, the Jesuits and the Masons have infiltrated Catholicism now, and Catholicism is just as much of a part of the Illuminati superstructure as Masonry is. But I just had, so this is what the quote from Manly P. Hall says. I'm just curious to see how this isn't describing a one world government situation.
No, I don't contest with you. I read it. I don't contest with you that Manly P. Hall's language in that passage that you sent implies that. What I contest is that that's actually what Masonry believes. You got to keep in mind that Masonry, Manly P. Hall is just one guy who studied a lot about Masonry, wrote some fascinating books, and he was made an honorary Mason later in his life. But he's not. That's not something that the fraternity is actually backing. Like it's like if you have multiple theologians interpreting the Bible, like just because one theologian says something doesn't mean that it's actually what the Bible means. It's just that's just like one guy's opinion. So if Manly P. Hall is writing this sort of pedantic extrapolation of an interpretation of what Masonry is all about, then that's fine. He can do that, but it's not an interpretation that is necessarily considered canon within Masonry at all. And I guarantee you,
canon is he's the most recognized Mason and he's the most respected out of any of them. And I don't understand. Like I've seen the same Universalist Brotherhood throughout many Masonic writings, Albert Pike, and many more. So I don't really understand how you think that the Universal Brotherhood doesn't define Freemasonry.
I'm just suggesting that a universal brotherhood is not the same. I'm saying that a universal brotherhood is not the same thing as a new world order. Like it's universal brotherhood in the sense of like the Christian sense of it. Like all people are your brothers and sisters. It's not like a mandated new world order thing. It's the fraternity is about first taking care of yourself, then taking care of your family, then taking care of your community, always putting God before any of those things. And through that, we become better people, then we establish a world that is more like a brotherhood than like a competition. So it's not like a mandated political new world order type sentiment at all in the fraternity. And there's no mention of politics specifically in the fraternity at all, except that you should be a patriot to your country. That's the only politics that's emphasized, regardless of your country.
Lucifer, what is your problem?
Just that, sir.
Okay.
I'm a Christian, sir.
I'm pure and virtuous and wholesome and innocent. How can you say anything bad about me?
Sir, you need to be born again.
I am born again.
Now, did you just say that you are Lucifer?
I am Lucifer.
Okay, define Lucifer for me.
Pure, virtuous, wholesome, innocent individual that's out to help people.
Lucifer is?
Yeah.
Say that again. Lucifer is a pure, holy...
Virtuous.
Virtuous. Now, is he the Lucifer that God created?
That's the same one.
Oh, man, this is great. I'm going to put this on the internet.
Oh,
Amen.
God bless you,
Amen.
brother.
Because that's exactly what the Shriners and Masons teach, is that Lucifer is light.
No.
And you're
what about
confirming
those hospitals?
You know what, sir? Jesus said, many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, we did not do these good deeds in your name? And you'll say, away from me, you workers of iniquity. I never knew you.
Jesus said it?
In Matthew chapter 5.
Mercy.
No.
That's hard to believe.
So you're a Christian and you don't know that? Actually,
no, I really am.
You are.
Because I'm pure and virtuous.
You're pure and virtuous, okay, yeah. In other words, you're perfect without Jesus, right?
No.
Okay, tell me about Jesus. Who is Jesus?
Well, he's my leader.
Is he the Son of God?
Yes, he is.
Is he the only worshipful master?
Yes.
Have you ever been called worshipful master?
No, because I've just been too busy. I've been working.
Working?
Been working to help people.
What
like
kind
you.
of work? Okay.
Get out of here.
See, this is what a Mason confesses, is that Lucifer is light.
I just noticed something interesting that I never noticed before. Check this one out. Look inside of the bulb. They actually have the Freemason logo inside of the bulb. So the light is the grand architect, Lucifer. They actually put that in.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to say that Adam Weishaupt, he did advocate that, and I'm just curious to see what you think of the Wilhelmsbad Conference.
I don't know what the Wilhelmsbad Conference is, but I will say that as a Freemason, whoever said whatever doesn't mean that that's what we all believe. I certainly don't believe in New World Order and those sorts of things, or in globalism, and I'm a Mason. And if I ever saw any wind that the fraternity as a whole was pushing that, I would leave the fraternity in a heartbeat.
Well, first of all, let me ask you a question.
Maybe you just need to learn more about it, because that's pretty shocking to me that you don't even know the Wilmsbad Conference of 1782, where the Illuminati proliferated all of Freemasonry. But that's pretty crazy that you become a 32-degree Mason and you don't know what that is. And also,
Yeah,
I
sure.
just have
I know what the
another
Illuminati
question
is.
too, real quick. Excuse me?
I know what the Illuminati is, but I haven't heard of those other things.
Okay, and I had another quick question too. Are you trying to ascend past the 32nd degree?
Am I trying to send what?
Are you trying to get to 33rd degree or higher?
No, I mean, a 33rd degree is only an honorary degree, and they usually give that to you when you're about ready to die at like the end of your life. They're like, I mean, they give it to younger guys too, but it's like a lifetime achievement award. It's something that they do as like a recognition of service to the fraternity. So guys that have been going to the lodge every week for like 50 years get the 33rd degree. It's not something you need to sign up for.
When you just come out and say Masons are devil worshippers, then people who are 3rd degree Master Masons are all the way up to 32nd degree. And then, of course, the honorary degree of 33, it actually goes above that. They don't know all this. And yes, the Illuminati has taken over Masonry. You can argue where it came from, the different branches of it. It predates Christianity. It predates Judaism. It predates Islam. It is the old-time religion. And it is, at its base, Luciferian.
Okay, and how long were you a Mason for?
9 years.
And how high up did you go?
Well, I went through the typical Blue Lodge degrees, went through York Rite all the way up to the Knights Templar Commandery, went through the Scottish Rite all the way up to 32nd degree, and at that time, then I was considered worthy to get into what is called Esoteric Freemasonry, which most American Masons don't even know exists. And in that organization, I was admitted into the Rite of Memphis Mitzrayim, and I went up to a 90th degree, which a lot of Masons, if they even hear that, they will, their false teeth will fall out of their heads. But there are actually at least 97 degrees in the higher level esoteric rite.
Were you surprised when you found that there were more than 33 degrees?
No, not really. See, here's how this works. When I went through the Masonic rituals, I had the spirit guides in my ear whispering things, telling me to do things, telling me to answer certain things in certain ways. Because I did that, I was identified by the leadership of the Grand Lodge of the state of Wisconsin that I was someone a little bit extraordinary. And the spirit guides kept prompting me with these things. And I knew before I was even asked that there was a Rite of Memphis Mitzrayim because the spirit guides told me so.
Wow.
And see, that's one of the ways in which I ultimately got contacted by the Illuminati, is because the spirit guides had given me certain key things to say, key things to do, even gestures to make, stuff like that, that would identify me as being someone who was worthy of more light. Because see, that's what they promise in all the Masonic degrees. They say, you get light, you get further light, you get more light. And of course, where does this light come from? Well, if you read the writings of the Masonic leaders, that comes from Lucifer.
I got a little bit more for you here. I got a list for you. So I'm curious to see what you think of Novus Ordo Seclorum on the dollar bill. What do you think that's about? What's the New World Order on the dollar bill about? And how does it not have to do with Freemasonry?
I don't know enough about it to tell you. I'm sorry. I'm not an expert.
Ooh. Well, damn, dude.
But I will say that the U.S. dollar bill, though it has a lot of Masonic symbolism on it, is not an explicitly Masonic document. And we didn't even have dollars as we look at them now until the Federal Reserve was created, which was 150 years after the revolution in this country. So I wouldn't.
Actually, no one knew that the Illuminati pyramid was on there until the Federal Reserve notes, and they got to see the back of it. But Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I pray for you, dude. Jesus is
Thank
the
you.
way.
I appreciate that. Keep
And
praying.
it's just like,
Please.
I just think that maybe you should do some more reading on what people have said about the Illuminati.
Tell you what, if you pick one book that you want me to read, I will read it if you agree to watch that documentary.
Oh, yeah, I will. Oh, and I wrote it down, 33 and Beyond. I got
Yeah,
you.
I sent a link in the chat too.
Oh,
On Amazon, you can watch.
I almost forgot. I got one more question, too. I got one more.
right. And I'll
I
share.
saw
I'll
that,
share it in the comment section.
I saw on your LinkedIn that you volunteer for the YWCA.
Yeah, I did one day.
What is that?
Young, I
For
can't even
one
remember.
day?
Yeah, I did. I volunteered for one day. Young Women's some Center for Abuse, I think. It's a battered women's shelter in Nashville, Tennessee. I volunteered for them for one day.
Are you lying on your LinkedIn then? It says you're till present.
Let me check.
That might give people a little bit more suspicious than any of this other stuff.
Because I volunteered at a battered
Not to
women's.
me, though. Not to me, though. Well, I just read the website and I saw the Planned Parenthood stuff. But yeah, I mean, the thing that just makes me sad, Chase, is that like I learned about conspiracies and the deep state and occultism and esotericism like all on my own. I didn't trust, like I got into Infowars in like 2018, but like I'd learned everything before that. And for the longest time, like I believed other truthers who were saying like, oh, Alex is a Zionist shell, he's controlled opposition and da 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 da. And like I always liked him. Like I didn't trust listening to him because of that. And like I regret that severely. And I saw him in A Scanner Darkly and the other rotoscope movie that he was in, and like I love those clips.
You
but-
gotta see the good in people, though. You know,
I'm
you
just
gotta
saying,
see the
like,
good in people. You gotta see people's hearts.
It sucks. Like it sucks that it's like, you know, Infowars is struggling right now, and I just hope, you know, it's not something that's gonna turn more people away. Because like, no offense, and I love Alex and I love Infowars, but like, if I had known that a Mason was like a guest host when I first started, I probably wouldn't have started watching. But that's just me. And that just sucks. And it's like, I get it. I'm fucking Jewish, dude. So I don't get to choose that.
Oh, you're never going to be a guest host then. That's for damn sure. I'm just kidding.
You know. But yeah, but you know, man, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be a hater. I feel really strongly about this. And it's like
Sure.
one of
No,
the
I
things
appreciate
I've researched the most. So I'm sorry.
No, you don't need to
That's,
apologize. All your questions are well
Guys, let's
received.
respect him and on. Seriously.
You got heart,
What'd you say?
girl.
Yeah, you're cool.
Boom, boom.
Yeah, thank you
you.
Chase, for coming on the TMI show.
Sure.
You know,
Oh yeah, dude.
it is nice to. I mean, we'll help out. We help out Infowars. We only have, you know, so many people, but we at least plug out, you know.
Yeah, dude, it's fun, man. I'd hang out with you guys any day of the week I could, man. I pop in sometimes whenever I can.
Yeah. Well, we do it Monday through Friday, 8 o'clock Central Time.